Hey everybody, we're the Benchwarmers. I'm Jamie. I'm here with my friend and co-host Gabe. Gabe, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing great. We are 1 week away from the end of our current Olympiad. And you know what that
Right.
means? It's time for
You
the
only
games of this Olympiad.
you don't pay attention to the Shavua or the month or anything like that. The only things you count are Omers and
And
Olympiads.
Olympiads.
You measure
Exactly.
time. Yeah, it has to be like a daf yomi amount of time
Yes.
to count in your books.
Totally. I don't even know what month it is. I just know that we are, I guess, upon recording this, we are 8 days from the Parisian Games.
Yeah, and we're going to spend this episode talking about the Olympics,
Mhm.
a few different stories, and a lot of Jewish athletes to highlight. On the back half of the episode, I'm going to be joined by Ido Rakovsky, who is an editor on the sports desk covering the Olympics at Haaretz. And Ido and I really dove deep into Israel's Olympic team.
Mhm.
And he is much more of an expert on it than I am, and talked a lot about the athletes that he knows well and who are the best medal favorites for Israel, and his very, I would say, rosy view on Israel's Olympic chances. Gabe, you and I are going to spend the first half of the episode talking about some of the Jewish athletes not representing Israel.
The diaspora athletes.
Yeah, that's right. We got both kinds here.
The biggest
Sham and Po.
The biggest chances to bring Nachas to the diaspora today.
Yeah.
I want to open with a quick something I read an announcement today. I saw a commercial for it. Actually, it's not necessarily a Jewish athlete, but it is a Jewish Olympic story. At the start of every Olympics, one of my favorite parts of every Olympics, the opening ceremonies. Before the opening ceremonies, there was always like a very dramatic voiceover.
Right.
Introducing you to like the games of Vancouver or wherever they may happen to be. But NBC has announced this year's opening ceremony preview, like the 4-minute film that opens the Olympic coverage, is directed by and starring Steven Spielberg.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. So they brought in Spielberg to make a little 4-minute short film to introduce everyone to the Parisian Olympics.
That's great.
Which I'm excited to watch next Friday.
And that segues very nicely into the next little Olympic story that we wanted to cover briefly. Steven Spielberg, as you know, directed a film about the Israeli response to the Munich massacre.
Schindler's List?
No, it was called Munich.
Okay.
Starred some great non-Jews like Eric.
Is that the Ark they raided? Was the Raiders of the Ark raiding the? Okay, go on.
Anyways, apparently the people who didn't see this were anyone involved in the Adidas ad campaign. They launched a campaign starring Bella Hadid, reintroducing a sneaker that had been introduced in 1972, I guess an iconic sneaker. I got to say, like, I don't really know this. This is more of a fashion story than a sports story, but obviously has an Olympic connection. I think anyone who is Jewish or knew their history well said, Munich, of course, the site of one of the most infamous terrorist massacres of Israelis and athletes that has ever occurred. One of the, a dark day on sports in general. That's the instant connection that is being made, and I guess Adidas didn't feel that way.
Adidas.
This was. Yeah,
will the Hun ever learn?
I'm not asking. Like, I'm not expecting that much from Adidas. Like, you can look into all this stuff if you want. Like, I don't have that much comment on this.
You know what? At least Kanye West wasn't in the ad.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is,
I mean,
something to be said for Adidas.
Him, and they did. I mean, they apologized, and they, I guess, are pulling the campaign. Sort of like millions of dollars must go into these campaigns to just sort of pull it over. The use of this person who, again, I don't really know that much about Bella Hadid. Seems like she has said this sort of dumb, blood libelous things that lots of people have said about the current Israel-Palestine conflict. So they pulled the ads, I guess, and they've apologized. I think, we'll see whether the Olympics does a good job talking about the Munich massacre at this current Olympics. And it's something that we continue to talk about. And we've had several episodes now that have been talking about that or discussing the Munich massacre and having
52 years ago. So it's a long time ago. But still relevant. And there'll be a lot of high security in Paris, given the tensions in the Middle East occurring.
Yeah. And I think like people have pointed out, like, this is going to be a tough Olympics for Jews and Israelis. there's some anticipation about there being some backlash, and we will cover that as it comes.
Mhm.
For now, I am going I think we're going like rose colored glasses, optimism, excitement. Olympics are exciting and they're fun and they're
Yeah.
wonderful. I love the Olympics. I know you do too. I think our listeners do as well. And this is gonna. Maybe it will be fraught, but right now I don't care. I want to talk about the Jewish athletes. I want to talk about the Jewish athletes that deserve our support.
Absolutely,
that
all
we're
over
going
the
to look out
world.
for. We have compiled as comprehensive a list as we are capable of. By which I mean we've gone through every roster of countries that could conceivably be putting Jewish athletes in Paris and done our best to figure out who's Jewish and who's not. It's not an exact science. There's lots of Jews out there. There's we talk about Mike Jacobs All-Stars, which are people with Jewish sounding names,
and we will talk about
to
those today.
Yeah, but we also talk sometimes about the Ike Davis All-Stars, where it's like, really, that guy's Jewish, or Ty Kelly All-Star. It's like, really, Ty Kelly, So I'm saying, I'm sure we've missed a few. If you know of someone who's a Jewish athlete who is not going to be on our list of Jewish athletes at the Olympics, let us know. We'll try and ask. But Gabe, you and I want to talk about a few people who we think are good medal contenders. I'm going to go first.
Please.
The first person I want to talk about is going to be a repeat medalist if she's able to do it, and that is the great Jessica Fox. She is a French-born Australian. Actually, she I think was born in Marseille, which is very fitting.
An all-time Jessica Esther Fox, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, exactly. And she's returning, I believe, to her fourth Olympics. And this is her fourth chance to she already has 4 Olympic medals. She won a canoeing medal in Tokyo and 3 kayaking medals in London and Rio and Tokyo. And she is, one of the greatest individual paddlers of all time. There's no doubt. So we're going to see what she can do at the coming Olympics. So she will be competing in 2024 in both canoe and kayak disciplines. Very fun watch. I mean, I would say not a thing that I watch a ton of outside of the Olympics. But take a look, guys. If you see kayaking or canoeing on TV, it's a very interesting watch.
They build this like course that the rapids course that they go down. It's very interesting.
Yeah, they're doing something for the first time this year called kayak cross at the Olympics, which is sort of, if you're familiar with the Gabe, in the Winter Olympics, it was traditionally an X Games event where they do like ski cross or snowboard cross, which is like 4 or 5 people going at the same time. And Jessica Fox won the 2021 World Championship, and I believe she's going to be competing with it at the Olympics. So that's going to be like a real spectator sport. And going along with her is her sister Naomi Fox is going to be attended as well. So very cool to have 2 Australian Jewish women, representing their sport, and two of the best paddlers out there.
They're also, interestingly enough, the daughter of previously one of the greatest paddlers of all time. She only won one particular Olympic medal. Their mother, Miriam Fox Jerusalemi, I should say that correctly, who was French for France. She won, I think it is 9 World Championship gold medals and 1 Olympic medal. So it's a multi-generational one. Interestingly, when you go on Jessica Fox's Wikipedia, you get sent to a link that is list of select Jewish canoers.
Oh yeah, wow.
Which is really
maybe one day I'll be on that list.
Yeah, you never know. You might be.
My canoeing has not been sport certified exactly.
No, you're a pre-certified canoer.
That's right. Gabe, who's someone you want to talk about as a potential medal candidate?
Oh, absolutely. I think we'll stick with the non-traditionally Jewish sports, and talk about one of the toughest MFers we could find looking up, which is American Rugby Sevens player Sarah Levy.
Okay, cool.
I don't know how much you know about traditional rugby, but it is a sport without breaks where large people smash into each other until one of them can get the ball to the other end.
What's different about Rugby Sevens?
So rugby teams are normally 15 people aside. Rugby Sevens is 7 people aside, but on the same size field. So it is way faster.
A sort of more wide open game, I guess.
Yeah, more wide open, way faster. The hits are harder. The play is bigger. And it's like quite exciting, and really really fast. What's really interesting about Sarah Levy is rugby is her sort of second sport. She
Oh, cool.
played at the Maccabi Games for Team USA in soccer
Wow.
in 2012. She grew up in New York, but also lived in San Diego for a while playing soccer, was a soccer star, and then as a young child, and then sort of converted to rugby as she got older and made her way to the Olympic team.
Okay.
Interestingly, soccer wasn't her primary sport. Now she plays in a much more physical sport. And Team USA, they're not favorited to win, but they could always do really well on any
Yeah,
large scale rugby event.
that seems like a pretty good chance for a medal, like
Yeah.
whether they get the gold or not. But that's really exciting, and I think it's also a good spectator sport at the Olympics. I think the women's rugby sevens, like, they really captured people's attention
Oh
in
yeah.
Tokyo as well.
I also think it's also interesting. I should say that she's not traditionally a rugby sevens player. She plays on the full squad rugby,
Okay.
so she's going to going like a whole lot faster, which is very very cool.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if full rugby, I guess, I don't know what it's called, rugby union or rugby league,
Mhm.
like, depending on, but some sort of full team rugby makes it into the Olympics at some point. I know
Yes,
there's a Australian Olympics coming up in 2032. Is that Brisbane?
I think so.
So maybe that'll be
So
a
maybe
full
rugby will
rugby introduction.
be there as
Yeah.
well. I
Gabe,
think
the
so.
next person I want to talk about is another American. I'm talking about fencer Nick Itkin, and
Ooh,
I want to shout out the U.S. fencing team because, based on our assessment, there are at least 6 Jews on the American fencing team, which is insane. Like,
if you go back into our archives, you'll find our interview
yes,
where with a notable
with
Jewish fencer.
we talked to
Where
Ellie Schenkel of who was on the fencing team for Canada in the Tokyo
in
Games.
the Tokyo Olympics, where they discuss
Yeah,
sort of the Jewish history of fencing. It's a pretty
right.
Jewish sport.
Yeah, and that's
Which is
again, like,
odd
I
because
don't
we're
know.
generally afraid of sharps as a people.
I
Doctor
don't know.
scalpels we're good with, but swords.
It's very interesting. I mean, it seems like a lot of the fencers in the States are coming from just, a few different places. Nick is from Los Angeles. I know there's New York schools as well, some of which are, I think, like, part of what Ellie said, and I think this is true of some of the places in the States, is that they were founded by Soviet or formerly Soviet Jews. I know Nick is, my understanding is that Nick Itkin is a child or grandchild, at least, of Soviet Jews. And there is that real tradition of things. So he is a foil fencer,
Mm-hmm.
and he was part of the U.S. team in Tokyo that won the bronze for team fencing or team foil. But he has put together a really solid record on his own. He took silver in the individual foil in Milan in the 2023 World Championships, and has a really good shot. So I think he's definitely a good medal contender, both individually and the whole team. And if that if any parts of the U.S. fencing team wins medals, like, for team events, that's going to be some Jewish medals there again. Just given
Absolutely.
the fact that there is at least 6 Jews on the U.S. fencing team.
So
Gabe, who else you got that you want to talk about?
I want to move on to sort of a non-traditional sport and talk about, new to the Olympics recently has been rock climbing. It made its
Oh, yeah.
debut in Tokyo. And it looks to continue, its popularity. Speed climbing, trad climbing, sport climbing, those are sort of the disciplines they have. And if you believe in nominative determinism, which I
Sure.
very much do, I want to bring your attention to a Californian Jew named Jesse Grupper, which is very, very close to Gripper,
It's not bad.
which is someone who holds on to things, and he has to hold
Right.
on to artificial rocks for a living. But I'm very much looking forward to Jesse performing. He is, doing his research. One of the first results is a congratulations to Jesse from his shul bulletin for
wow.
winning, a child climbing competition.
That's how you know you did it.
Yeah, that he made it. He had that, and now he's going to the Olympics, Mr. Grupper. So good luck for him. Watching sort of that, I would say, unfamiliar sport of climbing. It's good TV. Seeing people make incredibly difficult things look easy is pretty darn cool.
Yeah, I agree. It was cool to watch the last time. I think they need to do some work in the format in terms of making it more, I don't know, more of a spectator sport. The speed climbing, I feel like, just goes by too fast. Like, it's just over too fast to really do it. The bouldering is cool. I don't know. It's
One,
still sort of, I feel like, in its infancy as an Olympic sport, but it is cool. The head-to-head element of it, I think reads well on TV.
I would mention this all that Jesse is ranked third in the world currently from the last World Championships in 2022.
Right.
He won 2 gold medals in 2 different events in that tournament, and he was the champion in the Pan Am Games last year. So
Okay, wow.
that championship puts him in pretty good medal contending, but it is, not necessarily. There's a lot of good climbers out of Poland, I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
But, he is a Tufts graduate. He is a mechanical engineer. He is really like a nice Jewish boy who I really hope brings home a medal back to America.
The last Olympian I wanted to talk about is American wrestler Amit Alor. As you would probably guess from the name, she is the child of Israeli parents. I believe Soviet refugees as well. But Amit was the 2022 and 23 world champion freestyle wrestler in the 72 kilogram discipline. Wrestling is one of the few sports that sort of divided by weight class, which makes sense. People of the same size.
Every other sport is just divided by social class. Am I
right? But interestingly enough, the Olympics does not have a women's 72 kilogram discipline. It has 76 and 68. So Amit made the decision to compete in the slimmer. I don't know. Slimmer is not the right word. And I'm talking about weight here. I'm not really talking about svelteness or something like that. It's simply size and how big you are. I mean, how much strength you're able to put on, essentially. But she moved down to the 68 kilogram and won the Olympic trials and got a spot in Tokyo. So her 2 world championships, again, are at the 72 kilogram level. She's having to wrestle at a lower weight, which can be difficult for people. Sometimes you have to change your weight. Like it can be a difficult adjustment. But again, winning the Olympic trials, I think, is a very good indication that she's going to be able to do it. She has competed at 68 kilograms before. Like she won a junior world championship back in 2021. Wrestling, I think, is, again, glad it's back in the Olympics. Like, the decision
it's a
to
classic
get rid of
Olympic sport. Just, 2 people who can push each other further.
Absolutely. It was so dumb that it was gotten rid of. But, I think it'll be really interesting to see how she does. Again, I be interesting to see whether there is, focus on her status as an Israeli American, and what that means. There are a few other people I think we've talked about who have some more personal, familial connection with Israel, who are competing for the countries that they live in or the countries they're from. But yeah, definitely Amit Alor, I think, has a very good chance of medaling in wrestling. Gabe, is there anyone else, someone else you want to talk about? Someone else our listeners should keep an eye out for?
One athlete I want to talk about, it's been mentioned before. Traditionally, you don't see Jewish athletes in the, other than fencing and sort of the gun related sports. As a general group of people, we don't like violence or guns. However, we know that a lot of Russian Jews and a lot of Israeli Jews are incredibly tough and not necessarily the people you want to be in a dark alley against when they have a gun.
Okay, sure.
Which is why I want to bring back to Brookline, Massachusetts, very Jewish part of Boston.
Sure.
Ada Corkin, who is a pistol shooter, who learned pistol shooting when she was like, a tween from her Russian-Israeli father, Yakov.
Wow.
And I don't mean to laugh, but like these guys, like they're tough, scary motherfuckers.
It's really cool. The sport pistol is like it's sort of like a comically large pistol. Like it is made for like target shooting and like specifically for precision and stuff like that. But like it's very cool how it looks. Like it looks like like a I don't know, like a Dirty Harry type gun, but like even larger.
Absolutely. One thing I always think cool about rifles is you see a lot of very cool like you'll see Polish shooter, which what looks like some sort of bio, Terminator style eyepiece with a hand in her pocket and like a cigarette hanging out of her mouth, like shooting with one hand. Like, it's pretty cool shit. And I'm happy we get to see a Jewish person taking part in this, like, frankly, badass sport.
That's great. Before we move on to the interview, just a few other shout outs want to mention. As far as we can tell, there's only 2 Canadians of Jewish heritage. Sam Schachter, of course, we spoke to on our last episode, is going for beach volleyball, and Shaw Gordon is a fencer. Seems to be the only Jew on the fencing team as far as I can tell this time. If there's other Jewish Canadians that our listeners are aware of on the Olympic team, let us know. Shout out as well to 2 pro tennis players of very limited but some Jewish heritage. Both Taylor Fritz and Alina Svitolina will be attending. Alina Svitolina, of course, representing Ukraine. She's been very outspoken and passionate about her country, especially in the last couple of years since the war began. Intensified, I guess would be a better word. Taylor Fritz is the scion of one of the founders of the Macy's department store, which I think he's not practicing Jewish, like it hasn't been for a while as a family,
but they're in the shmata business.
That's a pretty Jewish thing to do.
Absolutely, be some sort of New York department store heir. Like, his grandfather certainly, like, worked on a sewing machine at night while he was on the floor selling dresses to housewives. I'm looking forward to, after our interview, discussing some of the Mike Jacobs All-Stars appearing at the Olympics. There's a lot of very close calls here that we want to hear your opinion on, readers, or if you know anything we don't, listeners. So we'll get there. But first, let's get to our interview.
Is life really miserable for the Jews, or are we just glued to a 24-hour news cycle?
Should we be worried that so many young rabbis are coming out of seminary as anti-Zionists?
And what does Judaism say about polyamory?
If you want answers to these questions, well, we don't have any. But we do love asking them. Each week, tune into Bonjour Chai to hear debates and hot takes by me, Avi Feingold,
and me, Phoebe Maltz-Bovey,
as we sit down with pundits, rabbis, and scholars to talk about the most pressing issues facing Jews in Canada and around the world.
Listen and subscribe to Bonjour Chai at thecjn.ca/bonjour or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, Ido. How are you?
Hey, James. How's it going?
Would you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
Sure. My name is Ido Rokovsky. I'm 35 years old. I'm from Tel Aviv, Israel, and I'm the Olympic correspondent for Haaretz. Probably heard of it, both for Hebrew and English edition. And I cover almost all Israeli sports and Israeli athletes, both nationally and internationally.
So we wanted to chat today, sort of a preview of Israeli athletes at the 2024 Paris Olympics. But before I get to that, I want to ask, for our listeners, mostly a non-Israeli audience, but obviously lots of people have connections with Israel or some relationship to it or family that are there. What's the vibe? What's the feeling among Israelis these days, at least in the last 9 months, in relation to sports? Has it been put on the back burner? Is there as much focus as ever? How has the Israeli relationship to sports changed at all in the last 9 months?
Sports has been changed and shifted in Israel, and the purpose of just winning or achieving or representing, even having a soccer match or a basketball game or going to jog became something that is not taken for granted. And in professional sports, it's obviously a participation of Israeli athletes and Israeli sports associations in different competitions around the world. So yes, for the first couple weeks after October 7th, it was rough, and Israeli athletes couldn't compete in a lot of things. It was a reminder of that it's just sports. So, there are much more important things in life, but also what do we live for, like culture and sports and those values. And I think our young athletes, what they represent while they compete abroad during this crucial time. And I think that's the linkage to the Paris Olympics, is that they understand that they represent something that is bigger.
Do you feel that Israeli sports fans are excited about this coming Olympics, that there's a lot of interest in the Israeli athletes heading out to Paris?
Yes and no. First of all, yes, we're very excited prior to every Olympics. Tokyo was different because of COVID.
Sure.
But
right.
Yes, there's an excitement, but there's also almost always an overshadowing issue surrounding the games. Globally,
of everything else that's going on.
Yes, globally and locally.
Right.
I wasn't around for Moscow 80 and LA 84, but there was things going around that time. And I think now in Israel, I mean, when you watch news, when you see the headlines and websites and newspapers, our newspaper as well, sports barely doesn't get a spot, whether it's in international sports like the Euros, the European Soccer Championship that was ended a couple of days ago, but also Olympic sports and local sports, that it's sort of stayed in the background. But on the other hand, it's not an escapism, because this is the reality. We can't escape that. And we have the yellow banners all around, and hostages has been mentioned prior to every game. There are many, and there's not enough gestures for the hostages and for soldiers and for everyone who battled the war. So yes, that's overshadowing that. But on the other hand, that's also something that people see as something to live for and something to hope for. And I think in this coming Olympics, the Israeli athletes, yes, the Israel society can't really think right now about an Olympic starting in 10 days, but the athletes know that once it's coming, everyone will look at them. I mean, if there'll be an Israeli medal, and we're hoping for some, the fact that there'll be an Israeli flag there means a little bit more this time than it was 3 years ago.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the athletes themselves. As you said, a medal has never been a guarantee necessarily for Israel at a Summer Olympics, but it has been something that, has consistently been occurring the last few. Tokyo was the best Olympics that Israel ever had, 2 golds and 2 bronzes, doubling the lifetime amount of gold medals that the country has ever won. Who, in your mind, are the most likely medal candidates from the Israeli team this time? You mentioned Anastasia Gorbenko before. She's a swimmer who I think she's going to be competing in 6 or 7 different disciplines. She's going to be swimming a lot. I think people are going to be seeing a lot of her in finals. Is she a likely medalist or a good chance for a medal for Israel?
Well, when we had the Israeli Association meeting prior to Paris, she said she's not a candidate. I mean, that's her word. I support that message because there's still a gap. When you look, okay. We'll get to Anastasia later, but just to answer your small question, is that she's not a favorite candidate. She's not a candidate based on her performances. She still has a gap to close, but she can close that gap with if somebody will be disqualified, and the coach of the Israeli national team, Eyal Elam, says that once you have a lane in the finals, you got a shot in the finals. So when
right.
she's hoping for a lane in the finals, she's going to swim 4 personal races and probably be participating in at least one relay race and maybe 2. But she's going to swim a lot. But I want to mention that Israel is going to send 88 athletes, almost match gender-wise. So that's good. And that's taking in account that we have 18 soccer players, which are male. Since Barcelona 92, Israel won 13 medals. It started with Yael Arad in silver in judo, and who's now the chairwoman of the Israel Olympic Committee, and Oren Smadja in judo, who is the national men's team coach for judo. And over the years, Israel won, as I said, 13 medals. 3 of them are gold. Gal Friedman in windsurfing in Athens 2004. And obviously in Tokyo 2020, we had Artyom Dolgopiat in artistic gymnastics and the floor exercise, and Linoy Ashram in rhythmic gymnastics.
On that note, I was just going to say, so Linoy Ashram has since retired. She's not going to be at Tokyo. Sorry, she's not going to be at Paris. Artem Dolgopiat is going to be in Paris. Mm-hmm. Does he have a good shot at medaling again 4 years later? I know gymnastics is a relatively short career typically, but does he have a good shot at medaling?
Well, if you ask Artyom, he's not saying he's gonna retire after Paris. He's saying maybe I'll go to LA. So I wouldn't. I mean, he's a unique athlete.
Right.
I would say that only once he'll retire will be able to say it. But in my opinion, is the most successful Israeli athletes of all time.
So Ido, who do you think are Israel's best contenders for medals in Paris?
Yeah. So as I said before, Tokyo was really successful, as you said. But we're hoping that Paris would be even more successful, as weird as it sounds. 88 athletes. A lot of them are been also winning medals in European championships and world championships. So when we're talking about candidates, we have to start with the Israeli national team in rhythmic gymnastics. They won gold in world champion in 2023. In all around, in rhythmic gymnastics, they only give medals for all around. So, and they won the European championship gold in 2022. So they've been a really strong team. They have a wonderful exercise in both 5 hoops and both in the complex exercise. So I believe that they have the best chance. Again, anything can happen. You have qualification, you have finals, anything can happen. Artyom Dolgopiat in the floor exercise and artistic gymnastics, probably the most decorated Israeli athlete of all time. World champion, Olympic champion, twice European champion, and many other medals. Sharon Cantor, world champion in IQ foil in the new model of windsurfing. She is a remarkable athlete, young, enthusiastic. I believe that she can bring a medal, and she's consistent. She's brave. She's and she's a wonderful human being. She's really, really likable. She's gonna compete in Marseille, which is also a bit distant from Paris, but we're really hoping for her performance. And some other athletes that can be at the end in podiums are Inbar Lanir, who's a judo world champion in 2023, and Raz Ershko, also a bronze medalist from world champion in judo in 2023 and European champion in 2024. Both two female judoka are wonderful, consistent, stable, and in a good day they can even achieve gold. But we'll take a good day with the podium. Also, Daria Atamanov, a rhythmic gymnast who's amazing. You were saying Linoy Ashram. Daria is, I don't want to say her successor because she has her own independent identity, but Daria, 18 years old, amazing athlete, talented. 2022, when she was 16 years old, she was European champion in all around. She won bronze in all around in world championship last year. She has few injuries, but she's really strong mentally, and she can also, in a good day, can win a medal. And also open swimming, Matan Roditi was 4th place in Tokyo in the marathon swimming for 10K. In archery, Roy Dror also European Youth Champion, and Mikhail Yakovlev has also an interesting personal story in track cycling. He's going to compete in sprint and keirin. He moved from Russia around 6 months after the war in Ukraine starts, and he's going to represent Israel.
And I saw he just had a bronze medal at the European Championship not that long ago.
While representing Israel, when he represented Russia, he won a bronze in world and European champion. In those kind of sports where anything can happen, for example, Yuval Freilich, the fencer, he can have an amazing day and finish on podium, and he can lose on the first match. So it depends. But my optimism I just gave my guess today. I said Israel's going to finish with 6 Olympic medals. And
wow.
Yeah, I know it's a lot.
I like the optimism.
Yeah, well, I'm an optimist, but when I mention the list, I mean, some people can underperform and still we can finish with 6 or 7 medals. So that's why I'm an optimistic.
Let's talk about the soccer team briefly before we go. So they qualified last year by virtue of making it to the semifinals of the under 21 team, and then the team that goes to Paris is now the under 23 team because they've aged up a little bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have 3 games in their preliminary round. Mali and Paraguay and Japan, none of which are necessarily soccer powerhouses. Are all those games going to be must watch games in Israel? Like, is everyone going to be tuning in for those?
Well, when they first qualified around a year ago, I spoke to one of my colleagues and we said it's great, but they're going to take some of the attention from the actual, Olympic athletes that has been working for years to get to the Olympics. Israel, number one sports in Israel is soccer or football.
Sure.
That is a no-brainer. Yes, everybody watches the Olympics and they want to see medals, but when there's a soccer game on TV, or there's a soccer game happening, everyone's watching. Those players, when they play in the under 19 Euros, the under 20 World Cup, when they play in the under 21 Euros, they showed a new form of Israeli soccer. I mean, we were for many years we're not really good. We joined back to Europe, to UEFA in 1992, and since then we couldn't qualify to any major tournaments, major levels, right? And normal age, not under or anything, and all of our success are from Asia. Well, we competed in Asia, and a lot of teams didn't want to play against Israel. So our level is apparently in under 19, under 21, under 20 has been great over the last few years. So those players, some of them are going to play in the Paris tournament. For example, Oscar Gloch, who's playing for RB Salzburg in Austria, he played in the Champions League. Liel Abada, who played for Celtic and now plays for Charlotte FC in the MLS. We have Daniel Peretz, who's Bayern Munich's third goalkeeper. We have Stav Lemkin, who's playing for Shakhtar Donetsk from the Ukrainian league. We have Omri Gandelman from Ghent from the Belgian league. We have a lot of talented players in this team that showed already that they're not afraid from any stage. Yes, it's different. Yes, it's the Olympics, but the soccer Olympic tournament is not in the highest level. Yes, there are France. Yes, there are Argentina, but Germany is not there. Brazil is not there. Israel is one of the only 4 European nations: France, Ukraine, Israel, and who I forgot. Spain. Sorry. Yes. So on one way or another, they're playing against 3 national teams that are not from Europe. They're playing a different style. They're playing in a stadium with a lot of attention, and there might be some demonstrations and some provocative acts of fans to distract from the game. I don't know how is that going to affect, honestly. Nobody knows.
I think there's a lot to watch out for, and I think it's great that you named so many people. I think our listeners and fans of Israeli athletics should watch out for those people. always good to watch out for any of the Israeli athletes. And as you say, there might be some surprises. I think the soccer team is going to make it out of the group stage. Whether they can win that first knockout game and get to a medal remains to be seen. But I think they can compete with Mali, with Paraguay, with Japan. Those are pretty even matches. And I hope we see an Israeli football medal. I think that would be very exciting.
I hope so too. I have to say that that the goal of the Israeli Football Association is to make it to the quarterfinals, and if we finish as a runner-up in our group stage, and we're playing the first place of Group C, which I checked yesterday, and I have to make sure it's either Spain,
probably would be Spain,
or Egypt.
Right.
We'll see.
Yeah, could be some interesting, both from a sporting and political perspective. Yeah. And I guess, we'll have to keep an eye out and watch out. Anyways, Ido, thank you again for joining us today. I really
thank you so much, James.
And
it's been a pleasure.
Our listeners can follow you online and keep an eye on your writing about Israeli athletes. I'm sure there will be plenty more as the games unfold.
Thank you so much for having me. Send hi to Canada.
Well, thanks again to Ido for joining us. You can follow him and read his writing on Haaretz, depending on your proficiency with Hebrew. We should say we talked a bit about the Israeli football team, the Israeli soccer team, obviously. Be aware that there is a pre-opening ceremonies match. They have to get all the games in. So there's a game on July 24th. I believe it is in Friday evening time. So, early afternoon.
That's soon. It's Wednesday.
Toronto time. Really late evening Israel time. But Israel's first match against Mali is on July 24th. So that's your first chance to watch some Israeli Olympians
against Mali. How is the Malian junior soccer team?
So I looked this up after I spoke to Ido. Israel is not favored to come out of the group. I do think they will, though. I think their team is better than others than they're being rated, especially given their performance last year at the
under 19s. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm sure there'll be a few people from the U19 team squad as well. But anyways, the team that qualified is pretty much the team that's at the Olympics. And so we'll see. The proof is in the pudding. We'll find out very quickly. If they can hang with Mali, then they can definitely get out of the group. Again, there's 3 games, so you win one and you have a decent chance as long as you can draw another one. Gabe, before we go, any other Olympians you wanted to mention? Mike Jacobs shout outs.
So there's a good number of Mike Jacobs All-Stars. I want to blow your mind here. I'm sure you know about this. We wanted to talk about 2 Olympians, Canadian hammer throw medal favorite Ethan Katzberg, who is not Jewish from
as far as we can tell.
BC,
he's not
as
Jewish.
Far as we can tell. And perhaps the most shockingly, Canadian beach volleyball player Chaim Schalk, who is also not Jewish.
That's insane. And maybe it's Chaim. Like maybe there's some weird. I don't know how he ended up with the name Chaim Schalk. But dude is from Red Deer, and like
he's from Red Deer.
For just the sound of that town, even for our non-Canadian listeners, I think can figure out that ain't a lot of landsmen out there.
No, he did go to Trinity Western Christian University.
He went to like one of the few private Christian schools in Canada. Like
in Canada,
you gotta be pretty Christian to make it there, I think.
Absolutely.
And, being from Red Deer doesn't do him any pluses in the Jew department, but hell of a Mike Jacobs All-Star. I think it's important to point these out because the Olympics is usually most of the people you see at the Olympics is your first time being introduced to them. And certainly my feeling whenever I see a name like that or a name that's borderline.
Oh, that guy's Jewish.
Oh, is that guy Jewish? I mean, that's why we'll put a list out there of Jews we know and people we don't know. Maybe Mike Jacobs All-Stars as well. And feel free to use that as a reference guide. Send us an email or Twitter message asking if so. We're pretty good at doing the research on if people are or we have done the research already for most people at this point. So
there's a couple of there's 2 different athletes on Team France who I think we can define as not Jewish but Semitic.
Okay.
And their names would sort of get you. They're both French Algerian, and that's handballer Elohim Prandi. So I think you
Right.
get some people who have the Arabic Elohim.
Yeah,
but
we talked about the football player whose first name is Adonai.
Very similar, yes.
It happens sometimes.
And also, mostly because I've known someone with this name in my life before. Algerian French fencer Sarah Belzer.
Yeah, that's pretty close to it. I mean, again, who knows? I'm not asking for DNA charts for people or Ancestry.com results.
No, but we're getting close. I also want to mention my favorite American climber, Natalia Grossman. Not Jewish.
As far as we can tell, isn't Jewish. Yeah, again, that's one that you will see. Someone will see that on TV at some point and ask us if they're Jewish. So
yeah, if they're Jewish,
we're preempting a little bit.
The same goes for Australian rugby player Madison Levy. We're really getting Madison Levy. There are several of those at my summer camp this year. I feel like Madison Levy is one of the key millennial child names.
Right.
You see their names and go, someone's Jewish. And then like Madison Levy, for example, you open their Instagram and they have like a Philippians verse in their Instagram. Like I feel like there are levels of Christian athlete. Your first one is like a cross, in their bio. Their next one is like all glory to God. Right. And then the third one is the Philippians verse.
Just like the pure, like, here is the Corinthians verse that really, has gotten me through the hard times.
Exactly. Like someone who knows like a second order New Testament book.
I think it's great because it really does the hard work for us pretty quickly when we're trying to research if someone's Jewish or not.
Yeah.
Levi, and it is Levi. I mean, that can be a you because it's like, you got your Primo Levies and what have you, but you also have your what's Chuck? He did Shazam. Zachary Levi.
Zach Levy. Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's his middle name or something. But like that guy's like super Christian. And then there was just a kid who got drafted into Major League Baseball named Levi Levi Sterling, who's Jewish. He was drafted like 37th or something like that. So
is he related to John Sterling?
I hope so. Think so. Yeah. Maybe
there's one other athlete I wanna talk about they fit all of the Jewish bona fides.
Okay.
All of them. Also a shooter from Australia, Elena, Jewish first name, Elena Galiabovich.
Wow.
So Elena is from Belarus, a Belarusian immigrant to Australia. Entirely possible that, in the late 80s when her family brought her over, she's in her mid-30s, post-fall of the communists, didn't know what was going to happen, went to Australia. She is also currently a surgeon. So she is a Belarusian doctor in Australia. I think if you were to find a plurality of Belarusian doctors in Australia, you would get more Jews than not.
Look, if people have any information about these people, let us know. It can be hard doing the research on some of them, but I agree. Sometimes with the Russian names or Polish names, it can be a little tricky because we're so used to them being Jewish names. But anyways,
absolutely. We
wish everyone a wonderful end to the Olympiad and start of a new one. Paris is it's going to be great. I love the Olympics.
It's the city of lights. Enjoy the Spielberg video.
And this gives you another angle, cheer for your country. Sure. Cheer for the athletes you like, and cheer for the Jews, it gives you something good to cheer for. It keeps the rooting interest in a sport that you might not otherwise be that familiar with.
Even the Jewish adjacent we're happy for.
I agree.
Yeah. If you want to cheer for a Mike Jacobs All-Star, if Ethan Katzberg, you're going to decide that on some level he's Jewish, we'll take it.
Yeah. Aaliyah Edwards of the Canadian women's basketball team. Again, if that gets the idea in people's head or puts the name out there,
we should get Aaliyah Edwards, Adonai Mitchell, and Elohim Bantry all on the podcast together.
That's right.
Discuss it with Jerry Judy.
Yeah, with Jerry Judy. That's a good idea for a podcast sometime. Anyways, please keep an eye on our Twitter page if you want to know when the Jews are winning at the Olympics. You can reach us out to us there. As always, we're brought to you by the Canadian Jewish News. You can find our podcast and writings at thecjn.ca. Follow us on Twitter at Menschwarmers. We will be in your ears again soon. Take care.